Why should women be bragging more about their successes? Well, I don't necessarily have that answer. And I think perhaps for many of you at home, you think to yourself, well, that's probably obvious, you know, bragging about your success. It's not that obvious. And my next guest is going to share some advice on that very topic. Steph Kelly joins me. She is a play and empowerment coach over at Copper Thread Coaching. Welcome, Steph. Great to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
I want to talk about your role because I just love, first of all, the title, you know, a play and empowerment coach. And I think the most intriguing part of that role is when people hear the word play. Where does play come into what you do at Copper Thread?
Really, it's about how you approach things. So for us, everything we do goes through a lens of curiosity and play and lightness, and you still get to the same place in the end, but It feels like less heavy lifting using those sort of playful, creative tools. And especially in group work, we came and talked about the Smash Room and the different workshops we do where you get to do something physical and play a little bit, but you're also getting to pull the threads and learn what's at the bottom, and it's a good combo.
Yeah,
it's a fun
absolutely.
job.
Yeah, for sure. And you want to talk about bragging a little bit today and how women don't do enough of it, bragging about their successes, no matter how big or small. Why, first of all, do you think it is that women don't brag about themselves enough?
It's a tricky one. I think that when we think of someone who brags, we typically think of someone who's a little bit maybe self-focused at the detriment of their relationships or is arrogant. But bragging really is an essential skill for people. It impacts your personal life, your professional life. There's a study out of the Harvard Business School that talks about when somebody gives you a direct invitation to brag. They ask you a question like, oh, how did you land this role? And you don't take the bait and you kind of skirt around it.
Right.
They're actually likely to perceive you as not trustworthy and less reliable.
Interesting.
In your personal life, the University of Chicago talks about if you don't tell your people about your wins, your intimate relationships, it can end up with big problems because they feel left out and they want to celebrate with you and jump up and down. And that can lead to resentment and problems in your relationship. So learning to brag comfortably and effectively in a way that feels good to you is a really essential skill.
Well, let's talk about that skill then. So how do you go about bragging? What are some of those tools you can share with our viewers?
Well, let me teach you how to brag, Derek.
If you wouldn't mind, I would love that.
We work a lot with women, so it comes up in one-on-one sessions a lot. You know, these are people who are really deeply good at lifting other people up and celebrating the wins of others. But when it comes to lifting themselves up and promoting themselves, not so much.
Right.
So whether you're writing a bio or in a job interview, those skills, if they're rusty, can really sort of set you off track.
Okay.
One of the tools outside of working with a practitioner that we really like is a brag book.
And you brought one along with you here, right? Is this your brag book?
This is your brag book.
This is my brag book.
Actually.
Oh my goodness.
So a brag book, essentially, we've all heard the concept. Well, you know, we got it just for you. The concept essentially is, we've heard it at work, you know, keep that file with all of your wins and your stats so when you have your annual review, it's easy to grab, you don't forget things.
Right.
But we don't have an annual review for ourselves, really, for most people. So this is kind of a handy way to collect all of those moments that make you feel proud in one place. You can feel it, you can touch it, it's tangible. And on those days where your inner critic maybe gets a little bit overactive, it also gives you something to touch and feel and look at and go, you know what, it's just a bad day, it's not a bad life.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, you know, one of the issues too is, you know, when people start writing it down though, you know, I think there's this sort of humbleness and humility that comes and then you start questioning yourself, am I allowed to do this? Like, how do you get rid of that sort of negative conversation that we often have with ourselves?
This is kind of the way. So instead of, you know, having to stand on a stage or go on TV and talk about why you're so great, you need to get comfortable being able to do it at home by yourself without an audience. In this book, you might put things, you want both sides. You want external and internal. Okay. So I brought some little items. So you might have external things like a card with some nice words from somebody that loves you or pictures from an important day. But you want to have stuff that comes not just from other people, but from your internal system. So it can be literal. You can write yourself a thank you note. It can be a bullet point. It can be a moment of something really, really small that you're proud of, that you pushed through, that you want to celebrate. Or it can be something that isn't so literal and is kind of just meaningful to you. Like I have a card from my niece that you might just look at and see. It has a very cute narwhal in it.
Yeah.
But I'm really proud of the relationship we have. And so we do, when she's a sleepover, we do highs and lows. But I've added in, and what are you proud of yourself for today?
Right.
So I look at that and I feel proud of like that relationship and how hard we both work at it. So that's going in my brag book at home. And while you may not know what the brag is with that, my system does, and it helps me feel more comfortable. If you can't brag, if it feels like it's too far away, if your whole system is like, brag, it feels like I don't like it, start with gratitude. So when I first started doing this work, I hated it. I couldn't do it. It felt uncomfortable. So I did a gratitude book, and it was things that I was grateful to for me. What have I done for me that has made my life better? I called and made a doctor's appointment that I needed to make that will make my life easier. I, did a bunch of laundry so that my busy week next week is easier and I don't have to struggle. Don't feel like it has to be inaccessible and so big and so perfect and so beautiful. Like, write a bullet point, put down a song lyric, whatever makes you feel that sort of sensation of pride in your body and in your system means you'll also recognize it when you go out in the wild and you experience it, and you can enjoy it a little bit more.
Do you think women do a good job of lifting up other women? I know we're talking a lot about personal here, but when it comes to women supporting other women, do they do a good enough job in your mind?
Women are so good at lifting other women up. It's their thing. They're so good at it. But when it comes time to do it for themselves, it's just not something we're comfortable with. We look at, I think most people would think that it's a self-esteem thing. But really, when you look at it, the self-promotion gender gap exists even when women can tangibly prove that they have outperformed their peers. So when you take, we're painting with broad strokes here. Every human is different. But when you take away that self-esteem piece, what's left? And we look at socialization. So little girls, there's so much pressure to sort of embody that good girl role and acquiesce. And the worst thing you could do is be aggressive or be full of yourself. There's no wonder we have a cohort of women who can't go out and celebrate themselves, but can do it for others. So unlearning that is a really mindful, intentional process, and it starts with things like this. It starts with celebrating yourself and getting comfortable saying, I did a thing and I'm really proud and it feels really good.
Yeah, I know it is hard for people to do it, but I think it makes a huge difference in people's life. 10 seconds, how do people get in touch with you if they want to work with you?
Follow us on social, Copper Thread, find our website, www.copperthreadcoaching.com, shoot us an email, we'd love to hear from you.
Excellent, thanks so much, Steph. Really appreciate you joining me. We'll be right back after this.